With all the hype and buzz around Shane Gillis, it got me thinking, why are so many people in love with Shane, especially when compared to some of his peers in the comedy and podcasting space? Well, through my hours and hours of research, I think I've come up with a few reasons, so let's take a look. So right off the bat, Shane is hilarious. I've watched his special and a few other bits and pieces here and there, and the guy knows how to make you laugh. When you're watching Shane, you can tell that he's super relaxed and very easygoing. I did notice that Shane tends to laugh a lot at his own jokes, more than most of the comics that I watch. Now I know that some people may take issue with this as they may find it annoying and tedious at times, but I have to say I really don't mind it. I think it makes his stand-up more natural flowing and more like a conversation. It's a small touch, but I think these small laughs and giggles between his jokes eliminates the barrier between a comic and their audience, as it feels more like an interaction rather than somebody listing off a bunch of jokes and then just moving on to the next one. And I feel pretty much the same way with Shane's podcast. Everything seems pretty natural and nothing really seems forced. I mean, every conversation just feels natural. They talk about things that you and I would talk about with our friends, whether that be sharing funny stories, opinions on things that are happening in pop culture, in the news, etc. And watching Shane's podcast feels like you're hanging out with a close friend, and I think that is great. But you may be asking, why are all of these things I'm mentioning even important? Well, that is a very good question, and I'll tell you why. You see, because all of the things that I'm talking about all relate to one word, and that word is relatability. And I think this is arguably one of the main reasons why so many people love Shane. He's like you and I. We feel like we can understand him. We feel like we can actually connect with him. And on top of that, Shane just seems like a really nice guy. So that helps too. That's great, but now you're probably sat there wondering, okay, I know why people like Shane, so what else is there to discuss? Well, what if I told you that there's another side to this story, and it's actually quite sad when you think about it, as it truly highlights the attitude of most celebrities and podcasters nowadays. And I am not just talking about stand-up, I'm talking about every single field. I mean, just look at reality TV stars. I mean, they have to be the worst of the worst, right? But although it is great to have someone like Shane, who has a great attitude, is a really nice guy, he stays humble and all the rest of it, isn't it quite sad that this behavior sticks out from the rest? And you may be thinking, well, Matt, why could this possibly be a bad thing? Think about it. Isn't it bad that just being a normal person, not being arrogant or having a huge sense of entitlement isn't the norm? I mean, shouldn't that just be normal behavior? Like, shouldn't that just be people's default setting? I don't know, maybe I'm the one missing something, but should it really be something that we even have to call out in the first place? Honestly, we'll never truly know how hard it is to not lose yourself until you're in that situation. But anyway, back to Shane. You see, I feel like a big reason for people hating on comics and podcasters stems from issues of relatability, and it's things like this.
Okay, but what's the other bougie expense? Is there anything you're like, I didn't know that I was this guy, and then you experience it and you're like, now I kind of have to be this guy?
No.
Really?
No.
All right, so what do you demand right now?
Nothing.
Any snack?
I can't figure you out.
In my green room, I get fruit and hummus.
What else?
You want steak dinners and shit. His whole rider is just hummus and White Claw. That shit is crazy. What's going on?
Nothing.
There's got to be one. You've got some money. There's got to be a thing.
He's embarrassed to be remotely demanding.
I would never be demanding.
See?
Ever.
That can lead to people hating on comics, and this leaves people being unable to really connect with the people that they like or admire. Now, I guess there is the argument suggesting that when somebody is confronted with large amounts of wealth and fame, it is pretty hard for that individual to be the same person that they once was. And this may be controversial, but I think it's a legit argument that does carry some weight. But then when you look at somebody like Shane, I guess that disproves that point completely. As you could argue, well, if Shane can do it, then surely everybody else can, right? And I guess you have to ask the question, what does this say about the world of stand-up and podcasting? The fact that Shane's behavior is loved so dearly. Shouldn't it be someone's natural inclination to act in this manner? And listen, I'm not taking anything away from Shane. In fact, I think it's great to see. But it's just a shame that we don't see this more often from comics, i.e. just being nice nice, honest, and genuine. I've always wondered why it's so hard for celebrities to do this nowadays, but in their defense, like most things in life, it's easier said than done. But I feel like a lot more comics would have a lot more success if they just started acting more like Shane. But it does make you think why this behavior seems to be so scarce within the industry. But this perfectly brings me on to the current issue surrounding Tom Segura and why his fans seem to be turning their backs on him. Now don't worry, because this all links back to Shane, but just stick with me for a moment. You see, in the business of stand-up and podcasting especially, how you treat and come across your fan base is so important. And if you don't believe me, just look at the current state of YMH. Now listen, every business has its peaks and its valleys, but if you look at the recent comments from Two Bears and even just the YMH podcast itself, it doesn't look too good. Now of course there are tons of positive comments, but over the last year or two the number of negative feedback has grown. I mean, just have a look at some of these comments. The ship is sinking, Tommy, you blew it. LOL. Remember when the YMH comment section was just all show references and quotes? People are clearly not happy with this show anymore. YMH without Nadav is like the Big Bang Theory without a laugh track, just a bunch of psychos. Now without Dr. Drew, well done, skinny, wealthy Tom. Bro, that guy, yeah, he wasn't messing around, was he? But I mention all of this because there was one moment that changed everything for Tom, and that moment made me see why so many people love Shane Gillis, and it was this infamous clip right here.
Time we talk about like a watch or a car, a bunch of messages from losers try to tell me I'm making them feel bad about their situation. You're in control of your own situation and your own feelings. So don't put it on me that you feel bad. Oh, but I'm struggling with rent this month. Figure it the fuck out. People are going to talk about things that you don't have for the rest of your fucking life.
Now from my previous video on Tom, some of you seem pretty split on whether this rant / motivational speech about the pause was all just a bit that got pretty pear-shaped and a case of people being too sensitive, or whether this was Tom actually revealing his true colors and emotions about what he actually thinks of his fans. But I bring this clip up because it highlights the way that Tom presented himself to his audience. I think this was the straw that broke the camel's back for Tom, as this is where that disconnect occurred. Now I would get it if Tom going on these rants was something that he did on a regular basis, but that isn't the case, as this behavior seems to have come out of the blue. And from what I've seen online, it seems like people are having a very hard time relating to Tom, thus weakening the connection between Tom and his audience. And I think that's what separates Shane from everybody else in the podcasting scene. You see, Shane feels like somebody that you would actually know. He comes across as a friend that you have at school, at college, at work. And I got that from his stand-up, his own podcast, and the other podcasts that he's been featured on, such as JRE and Flagrant. I think that people gravitate towards Shane because his behavior is consistent. You can relate to him. Shane seems like your average everyday guy, and I mean that in the best way possible. This consistency leads me to believe that this is the real and true version of Shane, and this consistency and authenticity in Shane's behavior I think is a big reason why so many people love him. Of course his stand-up is great too, which definitely helps, but he doesn't seem so detached compared to the other comics. So those are some of my reasons why I think people love Shane Gillis, but I'm interested in what you guys think. Is there anything that I missed? What do you make of the whole Tom Segura situation? Be sure to let me know down in the comments, and thank you for all your support recently. It really does mean a lot. The family seems to be growing on a daily basis, and it's nice to know that there's like-minded people out there who love discussing these types of topics. I really think it's great. But thank you for watching, and I will see you all very soon.
If I get fired here, whatever, I'll just go do Joe Rogan next week and I'll be fine. Anyway, I thought that was funny. No?
What?